just take a moment and center into that inner teacher? Thank you, God. We know it's the inner Christ, the inner teacher, our inner spirit that really teaches us. And so we tune in and hear what you have to say to us inside. Amen. Amen. All right. So, in this month of April, as we have celebrated Easter and resurrection, we're celebrating the expansion of blessing. And so we are going to align with this truth statement, because in unity what we know is that the way we orient our minds with constructive thinking and align our thinking as best we can and our actions with the deepest spiritual truth we can, that is what helps us to grow spiritually. It's one of our wonderful spiritual tools. So I'm going to invite you to join me in affirming this 3 times. And I'm going to invite you, if you choose to be a little bit out of the box and move a little bit. Use whatever hand motions you want, because it engages your whole energy system there if you want to do that. And let's affirm it. And we know that we affirm statements not to make them true, but because they are true. All right, so let's align with it. Here we go. My life is filled with ever-expanding good. Breathe it in. Let's affirm it again. My life is filled with ever-expanding good. And the 3rd time. My life is filled with ever-expanding good. All right, and I hope you're finding that this month, are you? Yeah, me too. I'm like, wow, pretty good. All right, good stuff. All right, I got a frog story for you. You ready for that? Okay, so there was this group of frogs that were hopping through the woods, and 2 frogs, unfortunately, accidentally fell into this very, very deep hole. Well, the other frogs gathered around the hole, and they said, basically they were saying, look, you guys better give up. This hole is so deep, there's no way you're going to ever hop out of this thing. And so you should just give up. Just forget it. And all the frogs were around the hole, you know. But those 2 frogs in the bottom, they didn't want to give up, so they were leaping, and they were leaping, and they were leaping as high as they could to try to get out of that hole. Meanwhile, the other frogs are jumping up and down on the outside, yelling at them. And they were saying unhelpful things. They were saying things like, just give up. It's a lost cause. Save your energy. Just lay down and let it go and just move on. You know, let yourself go there. Or they were saying things like, it's your own fault. You should have been paying attention. You should have been following the rules better, and you wouldn't have fallen down into that hole. Oh, can we relate to this? So they're yelling and jumping up and down, and the 2 frogs are jumping and trying to get out. And finally, one of them he just gives up. He just gets discouraged, and all of the other frogs yelling at him, and he's just tired and worn out, and he just gives up. He just lays down. But the other frog didn't. It was amazing. That other frog just kept jumping, and even though it was painful and he was tired, he just kept jumping, and the other frogs are still up there yelling these unhelpful things. But that frog keeps jumping, and finally, amazingly enough, he jumps so high that he jumps out of that hole. And the other frogs are amazed. And they say, wow, how did you do that? We were yelling at you, telling you to just give it up and let go. We could tell you were just tired and you had enough, but you just kept, how did you do that? And the frog said, you were saying what? You were telling me to what? To give up and telling me it was my... He said, you know, I'm hard of hearing. And when I was down in that hole, it was so deep, I really couldn't hear you very well. And I just saw y'all jumping, and I thought you were cheering for me. You know, there's a lot in that story. You can think about it for a long time. First of all, of course, think about what we say to other people, you know, when they're down in a hole. But today I want to focus on what is it that we're saying to ourselves when we're down in that hole, right? What's going on inside our heads, those frogs surrounding that deep hole that we're in? What are they saying, the inner frogs, right? What are they saying? Are they yelling at you, you know, that quit, give up, you know, it's your fault, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure we could all make a list. Or are they encouraging us, right? Are they saying, come on, you can do it. You can get out of that hole. There's a big world out here. You've got the energy. You've got the strength. You've got the talent. You've got the power. Keep on going. That's what we have to ask ourselves, is what is it that we are telling ourselves? And actually that Wednesday night class, that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. What is it that we're telling ourselves? And we can let it go now. We don't have to keep carrying that around with us. We can let it go. We can come up with some new messages, some new things to tell ourselves. But you know, all of us, whatever it is that brought you here today, whatever it is you're working on in your life, maybe it's because you want your dreams to expand, you want fulfillment, or maybe it is because you feel like you're in some hole, you got some problem, or maybe it's both, you know, they kind of go together. But whatever it is, we know that we do try, don't we? We're just like those frogs. Don't you try? All of us do. We work really hard to fulfill. We work really hard to jump out of those holes. We work really hard to live in this bigger world. And that's a good thing. And the other thing is at that human level, we get tired, don't we? We like those frogs that were down in that hole. We get tired and it gets painful. And sometimes we just feel like, I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to give up. I'm going to live in this hole. The end, period. You ever do that? Yes. All right. So what the opportunity is there is for us as people. All people are spiritual beings. The opportunity for us is to look to what is greater than just this human experience. The opportunity is to look to what is it that's in us that is really our true essence, that spirituality, to make that conscious contact and that conscious awareness and that constant conscious flow with divine power, with spirit, you can call it God, you can call it higher power, you can call it life, you can call it love, you can call it abundance. It does not make any difference, but it is the very essence of who we are. And when we make that connection and when we expand that connection, then what happens to us is that just like that frog that thought his friends were cheering for him, we find our energy renewed because what we get it is that, guess who's cheering for us? Who? This is a trick question. God is, right? And we are aligned with God and we're cheering for ourselves, right? And the amazing thing about that is because God's in everybody and through everybody, we find that around us, and we may or may not have noticed them before, but we'll find that God, through people, is cheering for us as well. We find that the whole universe conspires, meaning breathes together, to support our good, to say, you're doing a great job, you're filled with love, you're filled with talent, you're filled with abundance, and you too can express, and you too can be part of that world where we know that we are all one in a conscious way. We don't have to give up. Harriet Tubman, the courageous leader who led so many people out of enslavement in this country, what was known as the Underground Railroad, said, if you're tired, keep going. If you're hungry, keep going. If you're scared, keep going. If you want to taste freedom, do what? Keep going. And she was so right. She was so in tune with the truth, is that we cannot afford to give up. And when we cannot do it on our human level alone, that's impossible. So the good news about adversity is, what does it do for us? That's right. It helps us to tune in, right? Helps us to find. What? Somebody's saying something I can't understand. They have to tell me. Anyway. But yeah, it helps us to tune in, right? It helps us to find that power that is who we are and yet larger than what our ego self would say. And we begin to center our lives around that spiritual power. In Unity, we talk of it as the Christ. But we begin to expand our understanding and we gain new strength. And that gives us the ability to keep going. And then we do taste freedom. We live in freedom and we live in fulfillment. I'm going to share a scripture with you, and it's from 1 Chronicles, which I'll admit is not the most fascinating book in the Bible. It just isn't. And if you have trouble sleeping, read the first 4 chapters and on, because it's the first 8 chapters are genealogy, and it doesn't even use begat. It's like so and so was the mother of so and so and the brother of so and so and the father of so and so. I mean, the list goes on for like 8 chapters. It's amazing. Okay, but anyway, it's fascinating. Okay, so in the midst of this, though, there's something odd. There's something very odd. They usually don't talk about anybody, just what their family, who their family was, and da-di-da-di-da. Sometimes they say, well, they had a lot of children, but that's about as interesting as it gets. Okay, but this one person, who knows? We don't really know much about him. We don't know, so we just kind of have to speculate. But in the middle of chapter 4 of 1 Chronicles, starting with verse 9, there's some commentary made about this man named Jabez. And it says this. It says, Jabez was honored more than his brothers. And his mother named him Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. And metaphysically, in our unity interpretation, Jabez does have to do with pain and suffering, but with the overcoming of it. And so then, evidently, we don't know, I guess he was an adult, we don't really know. But it says, Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my border, and that your hand might be with me, and that you would keep me from hurt and harm. Interesting, right? And God granted what he asked. Wow, maybe Jabez fell into a hole. I don't know. We don't know why. But something prompted him to stand out from the crowd, and it prompted the writer of this chronicle, of this incredibly long genealogy, to make a comment about him. So there must have been something very special about him. So let's read it again. What did he do? It said he was honored more than his brothers. So he stood out. Somehow he was honoring himself, maybe, more than just the common herd around there, or common people around him, the relatives. And his mother named him Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. So somehow we can look at that spiritually. One way or the other, it's telling us he confronted his problems, right? He didn't just run the other way. He didn't just get mad. He didn't just sit down. He didn't just lay down. But one way or the other, he dealt with it. And through dealing with whatever it was that put him in a hole, or whatever it was that was calling him to something greater, in doing that and facing it, he got an amazing blessing. He got a transformation of his understanding. He got a transformation of his consciousness. So what does he ask God again? Oh, that you would bless me. And bless means to enlarge, or good. Enlarge my border. That you would enlarge my understanding of who I am. That you would enlarge my vision of life. That you would open me up to a bigger concept of my divine purpose. That changes everything, doesn't it? When we start understanding that we aren't just some random little ping pong ball out here rolling around, getting batted about, but we have a divine purpose. We are here on purpose. We are not random. And we have light in us that is always fulfilling us, that is always bringing forth our talents, that is always needed in our own lives and is always needed for the people around us. We are a blessed and we are a blessing. So he asked God to enlarge his vision, and he also asked that God's hand would be with him. And when we understand that spiritually, that means I want to know you're with me. That song we're singing, open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. Holy, holy, holy. You know, and you can also spell that W-H-O-L-L-Y. Holy, holy, holy. Let me see you in all of my being. Let me know that there is no spot where you are not. There's nothing that I have to hide. There's nothing I have to run from. There's nothing I have to reject about myself, because everything is holy. I am wholly one with God. And so we ask God to be conscious, to be awake. The purpose of life is to make what is unconscious conscious, so that we might be whole, so that we are not cutting off parts of ourselves and hiding out, but that we are fully present and letting our light shine. That's the point. And so then he goes on and he asks God to keep him from hurt and harm, to keep him away from hurt and harm. And that means that he was willing to see purely, that he was willing to see differently, that he was willing to engage with life from that spiritual level, not to get stuck in what is destructive. I mean, that's part of what goes on earth plane, right? Okay. And we get the opportunity to more and more and more in our lives come to ourselves and come to our relations with other people from that place of God light. Not from that place of, okay, you got me, I'm going to get you, right? Doesn't work. We all have to work through that. But coming to that place from a broader understanding. And what does it say? And God granted him what he asked. God granted him what he asked. And as we understand that as our internal process, our internal spirituality, what it's saying is that I don't have to be perfect. Spirituality is not about perfectionism. I don't have to not ever make any quote, quote, mistake. All I have to do is be willing and take one step at a time forward. I need to be awake and aware to be guided, to allow God to guide me, to allow God to heal me, to allow God to help me be honest. Jabez stood out from the others because he wanted to grow spiritually. He was willing to probably look a little odd, right? He was willing to be a nonconformist. And he was willing to do what it took. He was willing to stand out and to say, "Here I am, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. Open my mind. Help me be who it is that I came here to be. Help me to express the vision that is your vision through me." I want to share with you as I close here a beautiful card that our church got last week from the co-founder of this church in 1961, Dr. Catherine Ponder. And she has these beautiful cards with her signature on them. And she definitely, Catherine Ponder has always followed God's vision. She's a unity legacy and has written so many books on prosperity. And she and her husband Kelly Ponder in 1961 founded this church. We're sitting here because Catherine Ponder and Kelly Ponder said to God, "Enlarge my border. Keep me from hurt and harm. Help me know that I'm one with you. Fulfill your divine purpose through me." And that's, friends, why we're here today. So I just want to share this with you because we sent her a Christmas card. So she's responding to that. She sent this, as I said, a couple weeks ago. "Dear Reverend Anna and friends at Unity of Austin, many thanks for your charming card and note during the holiday season. Your message was greatly appreciated. Unity of Austin will always be," she put in quotes, "my first love. Since Kelly Ponder and I enjoyed helping found that ministry. The people there had prayed for years that Unity would send them a minister. Because Unity Village used to send out the ministers, and people here in Austin were praying and trying to get Unity Village to send them a minister, and that wasn't happening, right? But finally, Kelly, who was her husband, said, "I finally solved the problem myself. I just went out and married one." So that's how she got it. Okay. In our prayer ministry, so they're holding us in prayer because she has an ongoing prayer ministry. And she's up, I think, maybe in her 90s now, or late 80s, I'm not sure. In our prayer ministry, she's still going. In our prayer ministry, we shall be declaring with you that, and here's our affirmation that her prayer ministry and Catherine Ponder are holding for us in our church. "Every day, in every way, things are getting better and better for you now. The mark of success is upon you now and always." I'm going to read it again. "Every day, in every way, things are getting better and better for you now. The mark of success is upon you now and always. And let's affirm that together. We'll do it in parts, and here you go, and you can affirm it, know it for yourself, know it for our church. Here we go. Every day in every way, things are getting better and better for you now. Here we go. Every day in every way, things are getting better and better for you now. The mark of success is upon you now and always. The mark of success is upon you now and always. And so it is. Amen. Amen.
Pray for peace. 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 There's power in the number of us praying here on earth. We're asking for a miracle. Let your voice be the first to pray for peace.
Pray for your mother.
Pray for peace.
Pray for your father.
Pray for peace.
Pray for your children.
Please pray for peace.
And pray for you.
Pray for peace.
Pray for peace.
Pray for peace.
Got to pray for peace.
Pray for peace.
Pray for love.
Please pray for peace.
Pray for peace and love.
Pray for peace. Pray for leaders.
Pray for peace.
Pray for forgiveness.
Pray for peace.
Pray for freedom.
Pray for peace.
Please pray for us.
Pray for peace. Pray for our family.
Pray for peace.
Pray for your brother.
Pray for peace.
Pray for your sister.
Pray for peace.
Please pray for me.
Pray for peace. Pray for wisdom. Pray for peace. Pray for knowledge. Pray for peace. Pray for understanding. Please
Pray for peace.
Pray for the